you're afraid of the Americans, you're afraid of the EU, and you're afraid of the Israeli embassy, not too far from here. Palestinians have every right to challenge the occupation. Because when you're oppressed and brutalised on a daily basis, people, no matter where they are in the world, have a right to challenge that and resist it. Irish people have a long history of kind of fighting occupiers. We are on the side of the ordinary Palestinian people, and I've listened to the Prime Minister's statement many, many times, and many other foreign ministers in my time here. And the more I hear of it, and try to understand what actually they're saying, and the more statements they come out with in relation to this issue, the lack of credibility in relation to Palestine it becomes. It's lip service, and it's lip service at its worst. There is a number of things that this government can do to change that narrative, and I would respect that you would strongly think about changing the directive. There's a number of bills before this Oireachtas. They're very kind of moderate bills that would send a signal not only to Ireland but the State of Israel that there is sanctions in relation to their continuing occupation of Palestine. Now, Jenin is a very interesting place, Minister. Jenin is a camp from 1953. The people that are there are refugees from people that were expelled in 1948. So this is a camp that has suffered of the occupation for decades. And a number of weeks ago, Israel, with their kind of force, continuously go in there and murder people without sanction. And this is compounding the kind of the occupation of not only Jenin but Palestine itself. And this is the historic wrong of this situation, Minister. And Palestinians have every right to challenge the occupation. Because when you're kind of oppressed and brutalised on a daily basis, people, no matter where they are in the world, have a right to challenge that and resist it. Now, again, Minister, there's a number of things that this state can do. I'll go back to them two particular bills, but you don't have the guts to do it. And the reason why you don't have the guts to do it is because you're afraid of the Americans, you're afraid of the EU, and you're afraid of the Israeli embassy, not too far from here. You're afraid of the consequence. I would ask you to think about that again. As I said, these are very, very moderate bills that would send a signal to the world in relation to the Palestine situation. Another situation that kind of is ongoing is in relation to the EU-Israel bilateral economic agreement. This runs into billions of euros per year. And this gets kind of exponentially increases in relation to trade. Now, you think about it. What Israel does on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a yearly basis, is there any consequences for the State of Israel in relation to what they do, in relation to the apartheid system? There's none. Absolutely zero. It really kind of beggars belief why this continuously happens. But it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise because, as we have heard from today, it's lip service. There's no credibility, and we've lost all sort of hope in relation to this government changing direction. But look, the Irish people have a long history of fighting occupiers. We are on the side of the ordinary Palestinian people that fights against occupation, that fights against oppression. And we'll always be on their side, Minister. Your government have chosen to turn their backs on the Palestinian people for the sake of credibility in relation to them three forces that I mentioned. Again, Minister, think about it. Think about what your government could do in relation to just one of them bills. One of them bills that could actually send that message across the world that there is consequences for apartheid, there is consequences for racism, and there is a consequence against oppression. A small country like Ireland has stood against British imperialism, standing and say, look, we as a country can do something. We've done it before in the 1980s, remember, in relation to South Africa. A small country on the periphery of Europe to say, look, what's happening thousands of miles away is brutal. It's horrible. But we stand in solidarity with the people of South Africa. Now we need to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine.